You wake up every morning, go to work, pay your taxes, follow the rules. You're told this is the path to prosperity, that the system is designed to help you build wealth and secure your future. But what if everything you've been taught about money and government is a carefully crafted illusion? What if the very institutions promising to protect your financial well-being are actually running the most sophisticated wealth extraction operation in human history? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on something most people never see coming. The financial mechanisms that governments use aren't accidents or side effects of economic policy. They're deliberate tools refined over centuries, designed with one purpose in mind: to transfer wealth from your pocket into the hands of those who already have power. And the most disturbing part? These tactics are so embedded in our daily lives that we mistake them for normal economic activity. This isn't conspiracy theory territory. This is documented history repeating itself with mathematical precision across every civilization that has ever existed. The methods change, the technology evolves, but the core strategy remains identical. Create systems that appear to benefit everyone while secretly channeling resources upward to a select few. Think about your last paycheck for a moment. Before you even saw that money, multiple layers of extraction had already taken their cut. Income taxes, payroll taxes, social security contributions. Then when you spend what's left, sales taxes, fuel taxes, property taxes, if you're lucky enough to own anything. But that's just the visible layer. The real theft happens through mechanisms so subtle that most people spend their entire lives without recognizing them. Let's start with the oldest trick in the book: currency manipulation. Every government in history has eventually discovered that they can fund their spending without raising taxes by simply reducing the value of the money in circulation. It's politically brilliant because it feels invisible to the average person. Your salary might even go up in nominal terms, making you feel like you're getting ahead, while your actual purchasing power steadily erodes. Ancient civilizations did this by mixing cheaper metals into their gold and silver coins. A coin that once contained pure silver would gradually become mostly copper with just a thin coating of precious metal. The coin looked the same, weighed roughly the same, but its real value had been hollowed out. Citizens didn't realize they were being robbed until prices started rising faster than their incomes could keep up. Modern governments have perfected this technique through central banking. Instead of physically debasing coins, they create new money electronically, flooding the market with currency that dilutes the value of every dollar, pound, or euro already in existence. They call it economic stimulus or quantitative easing, wrapping it in academic language that makes it sound beneficial. But the effect is identical to those ancient rulers shaving silver off coins. The beauty of this system from a government perspective is that it feels gradual. Unlike a direct tax increase that would trigger immediate outrage, monetary debasement creeps up slowly. A coffee that cost $2 5 years ago now costs $4. Your rent that was manageable is suddenly eating half your income. But because these changes happen incrementally, most people adapt rather than revolt. Meanwhile, those closest to the money creation process benefit enormously. When new currency enters the system, it doesn't distribute evenly. Banks, financial institutions, and large corporations get access first, using this fresh money to buy assets before prices adjust upward. By the time that money reaches ordinary workers through wages or spending, inflation has already begun pushing costs higher. This creates a wealth transfer mechanism that's virtually invisible to its victims. The wealthy, who hold assets that rise with inflation, see their net worth increase. The working class, who hold their wealth in cash savings or fixed incomes, watch their purchasing power decline. It's a tax that hits hardest on those least able to afford it, while those who least need help receive the greatest benefit. But currency manipulation is just the foundation. Governments have developed far more sophisticated methods of wealth extraction that make monetary policy look simple by comparison. Consider the concept of forced lending, where governments compel citizens to hand over their money through mechanisms that appear voluntary but carry severe penalties for refusal. Throughout medieval Europe, monarchs would approach wealthy merchants and guilds with requests for loans to fund wars or construction projects. These weren't really requests. Refusal meant confiscation of property, exile, or worse. The crown would promise repayment with interest, but when collection time arrived, The money was often returned in debased currency worth far less than what was originally lent. Sometimes it wasn't returned at all. This practice has evolved but never disappeared. Modern governments issue bonds, presenting them as safe investments that patriotic citizens should buy to support national projects. Schools, hospitals, infrastructure development. Who could argue against funding such noble causes? But examine who ultimately pays for those bond returns. The interest payments come from tax revenue, meaning ordinary citizens are simultaneously the lenders and the source of repayment. The system creates an illusion of voluntary participation while establishing a mechanism for wealth concentration. Those with excess capital earn guaranteed returns backed by government force. Those without excess capital pay higher taxes to fund those guaranteed returns. It's a transfer system disguised as public finance, and it's been operating continuously for over 3 centuries. We're just scratching the surface of how these mechanisms operate in your daily life. The financial tricks that have kept populations dependent throughout history are alive and accelerating today, hidden behind layers of complexity that make them almost impossible to detect without the right knowledge. The most insidious modern version of this wealth extraction happens through something called deficit spending. Your government announces massive spending programs for roads, education, healthcare, job creation. The public hears these promises and naturally assumes the money comes from tax revenue or legitimate borrowing against future prosperity. But dig deeper into the mechanics, and you'll discover something far more sinister. When governments spend beyond their tax collections, they don't just borrow from willing lenders. They create debt instruments that get absorbed by central banks, which then create new money to purchase those bonds. It's a circular system where the government borrows from itself, using newly created currency to fund the transaction. The public sees infrastructure and social programs. The reality is a wealth transfer mechanism dressed up as public investment. Here's how it works in practice. A government announces a $1 trillion infrastructure package. Sounds beneficial, right? Jobs, modernized transportation, economic growth. But follow the money trail. Defense contractors, construction companies, consulting firms, and financial intermediaries capture the majority of those funds. These entities are typically owned by the same wealthy individuals and investment funds that benefit from every other government policy. When repayment time arrives, governments don't reduce spending on these profitable programs. Instead, they raise taxes on middle-class workers, cut social benefits, or inflate the currency to reduce the real burden of the debt. The infrastructure may provide some public benefit, but the financial structure ensures that ordinary taxpayers fund the project while connected insiders reap the profits. This pattern repeats across every sector where government spending occurs. Healthcare systems that enrich pharmaceutical companies and insurance providers while patients struggle with costs. Education funding that flows to administrators and contractors while teachers remain underpaid. Military expenditures that benefit weapons manufacturers while veterans lack adequate care. The spending appears to serve public purposes, but the financial engineering concentrates wealth upward. Perhaps the most audacious trick in the modern playbook involves financial system bailouts. When banks, investment firms, or major corporations make reckless decisions that threaten economic stability, governments step in with massive rescue packages funded by taxpayer money. The public is told these interventions prevent economic collapse, that without them, ordinary people would suffer even more. But examine who actually benefits from these bailouts. The institutions that caused the crisis emerge larger and more powerful than before. Their executives keep their positions and often receive bonuses. Their shareholders avoid losses. Meanwhile, the taxpayers who funded the rescue face higher taxes, reduced services, and economic uncertainty. It's a system that privatizes gains for the financial elite while socializing losses across the general population. The psychological manipulation here is particularly sophisticated. Citizens are made to feel grateful for bailouts that protect them from economic catastrophe, never realizing they're paying to rescue the very people who created the crisis in the first place. It's like being robbed and then thanking the thief for not taking everything. Even more subtle are the regulatory capture mechanisms that turn supposed consumer protections into profit centers for established players. Complex financial regulations appear to safeguard the public from predatory practices, but they're often written by industry insiders who understand exactly how to craft rules that eliminate competition while preserving their own advantages. Small banks struggle with compliance costs that large institutions absorb easily. Independent financial advisors face licensing requirements that favor established firms. Innovative financial technologies get buried under regulatory frameworks designed by existing players to prevent disruption. The public sees consumer protection. The insiders see market consolidation. Consider how retirement systems have been weaponized as wealth extraction tools. For decades, workers have paid into government-managed pension systems, trusting that steady contributions would provide security in old age. But these systems often operate as generational transfer schemes, where current retirees receive payments funded by current workers with no actual savings or investment occurring. The pattern is clear once you see it. Every mechanism we've explored, from currency debasement to bailout schemes, follows the same blueprint that has enslaved populations for millennia. The names change, the technology evolves, but the core strategy remains identical. Create complexity to hide the theft, use official language to legitimize the transfer, and keep the majority too distracted or confused to recognize what's happening. These aren't accidents of policy or unintended consequences of economic management. They are deliberate systems, refined across centuries, designed to concentrate wealth while maintaining the illusion of shared prosperity. The only defense against these tricks is knowledge. Understanding how they work, recognizing them when they appear, and refusing to accept the official explanations that mask their true purpose. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't learn its lessons, it will crush you all the same.